When the heart is tired and searching, when the soul is worn and still, every step feels slow and heavy. Every day another hill. There is mercy in the journey. There is light beyond the hill. Rushed institute, guiding hearts, building homes, elevating life.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to Roast Family. This episode is for the parent who is tired in a way sleep does not fix. The kind of tiredness that settles in the chest. The parent who wakes up feeling behind, already negotiating guilt before the day has even begun. The one who gives everything they have: time, patience, restraint, dua, intention, yet still goes to bed with a quiet ache that whispers, it still wasn't enough. You love your children deeply, and that love itself is what exhausts you. You worry about their fate in a world that pulls them in every direction. You worry about their future, their character, their safety, and the unseen path their heart will walk when you're no longer beside them. You try to be present even when you are depleted. You try to be patient even when your own wounds are being pressed. You try to be intentional, reading, reflecting, adjusting, making dua in the quiet hours when no one sees the weight you carry. And still, there are days when you feel like you are failing at the most important amanah you were given. This is not a loud despair of giving up or walking away. This is the silent despair of trying relentlessly and feeling unseen, sometimes even by yourself. It is the ache of sincerity mixed with fear, the fear that your effort will not be enough, that your mistakes will outweigh your intentions, that your children's struggles will be written as your shortcomings. A home can look functional, organized, even calm, while a parent feels broken inside. Responsibility has a way of masking pain. Exhaustion often hides behind productivity. Strength is performed while the heart quietly pleads for relief. And often, the parents who care the most are the ones who are anxious with themselves because they believe love must always be proven through self sacrifice. Trying your best can still feel like failure when expectations have no mercy. When you believe you must be everything, know everything, fix everything, and never falter. When you forget that guidance was never placed entirely in your hands and that Allah did not entrust you with outcomes, only with effort and sincerity. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, please pause here. Let your shoulders drop. Breathe. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're not ungrateful for feeling tired. And you are not alone in this struggle, even if it feels isolating. What you are experiencing is not failure, it is emotional overload mixed with sincere love. And today, we're not here to push you to do more. We're here to sit gently with His truth, to bring it back into the light of mercy, and to remind your heart that Allah sees what no one else does. Many parents today are carrying weight that no generation before them carried in quite this way. You are expected to provide financially in an increasingly demanding world, to be emotionally available in a culture of constant distractions, and to raise spiritually grounded children in an environment that pulls their heart in every direction. You are asked to protect them from fitna you cannot fully control, to regulate your own emotions even when you were never taught how, and to heal wounds from your own childhood while simultaneously nurturing theirs. And somehow, You are expected to do all of this with calm consistency, as though exhaustion were a personal failure rather than a human reality. In Muslim homes, this pressure often multiplies. Parenting is not only about raising capable adults, it feels like safeguarding the akhirah of souls entrusted to you. Every mistake begins to feel heavy, not because it is catastrophic, but because you attach eternal consequences to every moment. A misstep feels permanent, a phase feels like destiny. You tell yourself that if your child drifts, it will be your fault. If they struggle, it must mean you failed in your duty. This is where the heart begins to fracture under the weight of responsibility. We were taught responsibility, but not limits. We were taught accountability, but not compassion for ourselves. We were taught that parenting is an amanah, but quietly turned that amanah into a burden. We believe we must carry alone. We forget that amanah was never meant to crush the carrier, it was meant to connect them to Allah. Islam never asked parents to be perfect, it asked them to be sincere. Yet, somewhere along the line, sincerity became self criticism. Effort became constant self interrogation. Instead of turning to Allah with trust, many parents turn inward with accusation. So, even on days when you do everything you can, when you show up with intention and restraint, the heart still whispers, it is not enough. Not because it truly isn't, but because the standard you're measuring yourself against was never meant to be human. And Allah, in His mercy, calls us back to truth before He calls us to rest. One of the most painful experiences in parenting is to give your best and still feel as though you're falling short. You show up even when you are depleted. You sacrifice comfort, time, and personal ease. You restrain your anger when patience feels thin. You worry constantly, replaying moments in your mind, asking yourself what you should have done differently. And yet, despite all of this effort, the sense of inadequacy does not leave. This quiet defeat often takes root when effort is measured only by outcomes, when obedience, behavior, academic success, of visible religiosity become the yardstick of success. Parents begin to feel crushed by things that were never fully within their control. Every struggle becomes evident. Every setback feels like a verdict. Slowly, love turns into pressure and responsibility turns into fear. Children, however, were never meant to be projected to perfect. They are souls on journeys Allah Himself controls. They arrive with temperament, test, destinies written before you ever held them in your arms. When parents forget this, responsibility quietly transforms into self blame. What should have been stewardship becomes self accusation. What should have been trust becomes anxiety. Islam reminds us of a truth that parenting fatigue often makes us forget you can do everything right and still face difficulty. The Prophet, peace be upon them, themselves faced hardship with their children, not because they failed, but because guidance does not belong to human hands. Effort does not guarantee outcomes, it earns reward. Showing up with sincerity is never wasted, even when results are delayed or unseen. Feeling defeated does not mean you are failing. Sometimes it means you are carrying more than you are meant to carry. The heaviest burden many parents bear is the belief that everything depends on them, that one mistake will undo years of effort, that the future rests entirely on their shoulders. Islam made us understand that guidance belongs to Allah. Parenting is planting and watering, not controlling the harvest. You are asked to nurture with intention, to model with sincerity, and to return to Allah with trust. The growth The timing and the unfolding of each soul were never yours to command. When this truth settles in the heart, effort begins to feel lighter, not because parenting becomes easy, but because it becomes shared with the one who entrusted you with his role and never intended you to carry it alone. Let us pause here because this despair often grows from something deeper. Many parents live with a constant background guilt that never fully switches off. It follows you through your day and settles beside you at night. Guilt for working too much and missing moments you cannot get back. Guilt for not working enough and worrying you're failing to provide. Guilt for being tired when your children still need you. Guilt for losing patience, for raising your voice, for wanting rest instead of another demand. This guilt often feels spiritual, but is not always rooted in wrongdoing. More often, it grows from unrealistic expectations and relentless comparison. Social media presents curated moments of calm parenting and smiling children. Community pressure quietly praises certain standard without acknowledging unseen struggles. Idealized narratives convince you that everyone else has found the balance you seem to keep missing. And slowly, almost unconsciously, you internalize a painful lie. If I were a better parent, this will not be happening. If I were more patient, more organized, more spiritual, more disciplined, my home will be different or feel different. That's not true. But guilt without guidance is corrosive. It does not lead you back to Allah. It turns you inward with accusation. It drains joy from moments that were meant to be lived. It erodes confidence until every decision feels wrong. And over time, it distances the heart from Allah. Not because He is far, but because you feel ashamed to approach Him with your exhaustion. Allah does not measure you the way you measure yourself. He sees effort where you see failure. He sees sincerity where you see shortcomings. He sees the night you worry, the restraint you practice, and the love that motivates every difficult choice. Guilt is not always conviction. Sometimes it is exhaustion speaking in a spiritual language, and a heart drowning in guilt cannot parent with mercy because it has none left for itself. You cannot raise peaceful children while being at war with your own soul. Islam does not ask parents to live under constant self reproach. It calls them back to balance, to trust, and to compassion. The same mercy you hope your children will grow up with must first be allowed to live within you. And when guilt remains unresolved, it reshapes how parents see themselves. Over time, something subtle but dangerous can begin to happen in the heart of a parent. Slowly, almost without noticing, you stop seeing yourself first and foremost as a servant of Allah who was entrusted with a responsibility. Instead, you begin to see yourself as a permanent failure in the role you care about most. Parenting stops being something you do and become who you think you are. Every mistake becomes proof. Every struggle becomes evidence. Every difficult phase feels like a verdict on your worth. This shift is dangerous, not because parents stop caring, but because they begin to lose hope. And hope is the fuel that allows love, patience, and mercy to keep flowing. When hope heroes, parents do not become careless, they become heavy. They carry shame where they were meant to carry trust. They carry fear where they were meant to carry tawakkul. Islam never defined parenthood as perfection. It defined it as amanah, accompanied by reliance on Allah. An amanah is something precious, but it was never meant to crush the one carrying it. Tawakkul was not added as an afterthought. It was placed at the heart of the responsibility. You were never meant to carry outcomes on your shoulders. nor belief that your worth rises and falls with your children's behavior or struggles. Your worth as a parent is not erased by your child's difficulty. A child's struggle is not a divine indictment of you. Your effort is seen even when results are delayed, invisible, or unfolding in ways you cannot yet understand. Allah sees the night you worry, the restraint you practice, the dua whispered a moment of fear and love. Nothing sincere is lost with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah does not entrust souls to people He intends to humiliate. He entrusts them to hurt He knows will turn back to Him again and again. Parenting was never meant to disconnect you from Allah or push you into constant self reproach. It was meant to draw you closer to Him, to teach you reliance, humility, and hope. When parenting turns into an identity crisis, the path forward is not doing more, it is remembering who you are. You're not a failed parent trying to earn Allah's approval. You are a servant of Allah, doing your best with a trust that was never meant to be carried alone. Before we talk about what to do differently, we need to release what was never yours to carry, because no strategy will work if the heart remains crushed under impossible expectations. Healing in parenting begins with redefining success. Success was never meant to look like control, perfection, or constant visible result. In Islam, success begins with sincerity, with showing up honestly even when energy is low and outcomes are uncertain. When parents measure themselves by control, they live in fear. When they measure themselves by sincerity, they live in trust. Separate effort from outcome, because confusing the two is one of the fastest way to exhaust the heart. You are accountable for intention and action, for presence and restraint, for the values you model and the love you offer. You were never made responsible for results that unfold beyond your sight or timing. Outcomes belong to Allah. Your task is to keep planning with integrity, even when you do not see growth immediately. Learn to speak to yourself with the same mercy you try to give to your children. Many parents are gentle outward and brutal inwardly. They excuse their child's immaturity but punish their own humanity. This inner harshness drains patience faster than any child could. Mercy that is not extended inward eventually runs dry outward. Instead of chasing perfect consistency, build small rituals of connection, a few minutes of undistracted attention, a shared dua before sleep, a calm check in after a difficult day. Children do not need flawless routine to feel secure. They need repeated moments where they feel seen, chosen, and emotionally held. Now, return to Allah with honesty, not performance. Let dua be your refuge, not a report card of how well you think you're doing. Allah does not require you to present yourself as composed. He invites you to come as you are, exhausted, worried, uncertain, and sincere. There is relief in remembering that Allah already knows what you're carrying. And finally, remind your heart of this truth. Often, your children are not a reflection of your worth. They are trust walking their own path with their own test, timing, and story. Your role is not to write their destination, but to walk beside them with love, faith, and humility. When these truths settle, parenting begins to feel lighter, not because it becomes easy, but because it becomes shared with the one who entrusted you with his role and never intended for you to carry it alone. Oh Allah, you see the exhaustion we hide behind responsibilities and routine. You see the tears we suppress because we believe we must stay strong. You know the weight parents carry in silence, the fears we never say out loud, and the night our hearts lie awake, worrying about the souls we love more than ourselves. O Allah, place sakina in our hearts where guilt has made a home, and replace restlessness with tranquility that only you can give. O Allah, forgive us for the ways we have been harsh with ourselves. Forgive us for turning sincere responsibilities into self punishment. Teach us how to trust you with our children without abandoning the effort you ask of us. Heal our fear of failure, the fear that whispers that one mistake will undo everything. Replace the fear with tawakkul, with a deep knowing that you are more merciful to our children than we could ever be. O Allah, accept our effort even when results are unclear and progress feels invincible. Accept the restraint we show, the patience we practice, and the dua we make when no one sees. Protect our children in ways we cannot. Guard their hearts, guard their steps, surround them with your care. When we fall short, make our homes places of mercy, not pressure, places of refuge, not fear, places where your name brings comfort, not anxiety. O Allah, make us parents who return to you often, who rely on you sincerely, and who find strength not in control but in trust. Amen. If parenting feels heavy right now, let this be a reminder. Heaviness does not mean you're failing. Very often, it means you care deeply, that your heart is invested, that love is alive, even when energy is low. You were never meant to be enough on your own. That was never the expectation. You were meant to show up with sincerity and rely on Allah for what you cannot carry. Parenting was designed to humble the heart, to draw it back to Allah again and again, not to convince you that you are inadequate. Healing does not begin with doing more, reading more, fixing more, or pushing harder. It begins with being gentler with yourself, with allowing mercy to reach you before you try to give it to others, with remembrance that Allah does not ask you to be perfect, only present and sincere. Your effort is seen, even when it feels invincible. Your sincerity matters, even when results are delayed. And your story as a parent is still unfolding, guided by a Lord who is wise, merciful, and never careless with the result He places in your hands. May Allah ease your heart, steady your steps, and place barakah in your home. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Rushed institute, guiding hearts, building homes, elevating